I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My name's Mike, and for most of our marriage I thought I had a pretty good thing going. My wife, Lisa, seemed perfect, pretty, smart, confident. We'd been married for about 8 years, and honestly I thought we were solid. Sure, little arguments here and there, but nothing that felt like a sign of anything seriously wrong. Or so I thought. It all started to change a few months ago. Lisa became more irritable, snapping at me over small things, snubbing my calls during the day. I noticed she was pulling away emotionally. She'd make excuses, work stress, tiredness, feeling overwhelmed with the kids. We've got two little ones, Emily and Jake, both in elementary school. I figured it was just a rough patch, maybe holiday stress or her workload at her job. But underneath, a strange feeling was creeping in, like a small pinprick of doubt I couldn't quite ignore. Then came the night of the parent-teacher conference. It was scheduled for the evening, and I was planning to go with her, but she insisted she'd handle it alone, saying she wanted to discuss the kids' educational future with the teachers in private. I didn't think much of it at first. She's always been good at talking her way out of things, so I shrugged. But that night, something about her tone, the way she avoided eye contact, nagged me. I stayed home with the kids, watched TV, kept an ear out for any strange noises. Around 9 p.m. I was in the kitchen, grabbing a glass of water when I saw her phone on the counter. It was unlocked. Normally, she's very protective of her device, always using a passcode, so seeing it just sitting there was strange. I hesitated for a second, then I grabbed it, thinking I'd check her messages just to see if she really was talking to her teachers. I didn't expect what I found. As soon as I unlocked the phone, a string of texts popped up from someone named John. The messages started innocuously, talking about the kids' progress, their homework. But then it quickly shifted, flirty, teasing, suggestive. I scrolled a little further and saw texts that made my stomach turn. Things like "can't wait to see you tonight," "I've been thinking about last time," and a bunch of other stuff I wouldn't even repeat. The guy was a teacher, our kids' elementary school principal, for crying out loud. Lisa had told me she was discussing their educational future, but those texts told a different story. There were photos attached, too, one of her in his office, smiling, seemingly close. And to make it worse, I found a chain of texts from a few days before, about a supposed meeting after school, about how they'd keep it secret, how they'd make it work. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My heart started pounding like crazy. I felt this rush of anger and betrayal flood over me. How could she do this? How could she cheat on me with our own kid's principal, right there in his office during a parent-teacher night? I'd always trusted her, always believed she was loyal, but this was a whole new level. I stood there, staring at her phone, trying to process what I'd just seen. It felt like my world was collapsing. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying everything I saw, trying to tell myself it was a mistake, maybe misinterpreting. But deep down, I knew the truth. She lied to me about what she was doing that night. She lied about everything. And now I had proof. I had to confront her. I had to find out what her reasons were, what she thought she was doing, and most of all, what it meant for us. The next morning, I could barely focus on anything. My mind kept circling back to that phone, those texts, that image of her in his office smiling like she was in some secret world I wasn't invited to. I knew I couldn't just keep quiet about it. I needed answers fast. Lisa was still in bed when I woke up. She looked rested, a little too relaxed, and when I stared at her, she caught me. That smirk she gave me, like she knew I'd found out, made my blood boil. I felt my fists clench, but I kept my voice even, cold even. "Lisa," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and hurt, "can we talk, seriously talk? I found your phone last night. I saw the texts. The ones with John. Tell me what the hell is going on." She sat up, rubbing her eyes, pretending to be innocent. "What are you talking about, Mike? You're overreacting. It's nothing. Just some stupid flirty messages. It doesn't mean anything." I stared at her, stunned. "Nothing? Are you kidding me? Those messages, you were planning to meet him after school in his office during parent-teacher night. You lied to me about what you were doing. You lied to the kids. And I saw the photos, you in his office, smiling like some damn teenager. How could you do this?" Her face twisted into a sneer. "Oh, so now I'm a liar, huh? You're always accusing me of something. Maybe I just wanted to have some fun, Mike. Maybe I was bored. What's wrong with that? It's not like I'm cheating on you with some random guy at the bar, Jesus." I couldn't hold back my fury. "You're damn right it's cheating, it's betrayal. How long has this been going on? Are you even sorry, or are you just sorry I found out?" She rolled her eyes. "Sorry, sorry, you think I'm sorry? Please, don't act like I owe you some big explanation. It was one night, one mistake. It doesn't mean I don't love you. I was just. What? I cut her off. "Just fooling around, because I don't buy that. You don't cheat during parent-teacher night unless you're completely checked out of this marriage. Or maybe you've been checked out for a long time. Did I mean nothing to you?" She scoffed. "You're overreacting, Mike. Honestly, you're acting like a jealous idiot. I've always been honest with you, haven't I? I told you I was busy that night. You're imagining things. You want to make this into some huge crisis, but it's just sex. It's not the end of the world." That was the moment I realized her words were just excuses, a way to brush everything off, to pretend it was no big deal. She always had a way of making me feel like I was crazy for feeling hurt. But I wasn't crazy. I just didn't want to be betrayed like this, especially by someone I loved so much. I told her I needed some time to think, to process everything. She just rolled her eyes and went on about how I was overreacting, how I was insecure, how I didn't trust her. But I knew the truth. The truth was in those texts, that she'd lied about her intentions that night, that she'd crossed a line I never thought she would. That day, I felt like I was living in some nightmare. I kept looking at her and seeing the woman I married, so confident, so charming. Yet now, I saw her as someone else. Someone who betrayed everything we built. I didn't sleep much that night either, but I did decide I wouldn't let her get away with it without consequences. I had to plan my next move carefully. I knew I couldn't just confront her and expect her to suddenly be sorry. This was more than a mistake. It was a breach of trust I wasn't sure I could ever come back from. I started to think about what I wanted, whether I could forgive, whether I even could stay in this marriage after what I saw. But one thing was certain. I wasn't going to let her brush this off like it was no big deal. Not anymore. Over the next few days, I found myself walking around in a fog. Every time I saw Lisa, I felt this mixture of anger, betrayal, and disappointment swirling inside me. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so trusting, only to discover she'd been sneaking around with John, our kid's principal of all people. That night after she went to bed, I stayed up scrolling through her phone again, looking for more clues, more proof. I wanted to understand exactly how deep this went. What I found was even worse. There were dozens of texts, not just from that night but extending over the past couple of months. She'd been messaging him constantly, always with some excuse about discussing the kids, but the tone was different, flirty, intimate, like they shared some secret language. The more I read, the more I realized this wasn't a one-time thing. It was systematic. She'd been lying to my face for months, playing the perfect wife in front of me while sneaking off to meet him or text him late at night. It hit me hard. I thought about all those mornings she'd been so busy at work, all those times she'd snapped at me, pushing me away, all the times I'd caught her looking at her phone with that guilty little smile. It was all there, laid bare. I wasn't imagining things. She had been cheating on me with our kids' principal while we were supposed to be building a life together. That realization made me furious, but also deeply hurt. I felt this ache in my chest, like someone had reached inside and squeezed my heart. I had invested 8 years in this marriage, in her, thinking she was honest, loyal, committed. And now I had proof that she'd been lying all along. The betrayal cut so deep I wondered if I'd ever be able to look at her the same way again. I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I had to confront her again, but this time I wanted to be ready. I started planning what I'd say, how I'd handle her lies, her manipulations. I knew she'd deny everything, call me crazy or paranoid, but I wasn't going to let her do that without evidence. I'd recorded some of her conversations on my phone, just in case I needed to show her she couldn't manipulate her way out of this. That evening, I sat her down in the living room. My hands were shaking, but I kept my voice steady. "Lisa, I need to talk to you again. I found more messages. I know now that this has been going on for months. I know you lied about what you were doing that night, and I know you've been lying to me since then. I don't want to hear your excuses. I just want to know, are you even sorry, or is this who you really are?" She looked at me, her face twisting with that same disdainful smirk. "You're overreacting, Mike. You're making this into some huge drama. I've told you it's just sex. It's not like I'm leaving you. I still love you, I just needed something for myself, you know. Maybe I got bored, maybe I wanted some excitement. It doesn't mean I don't care about the kids or you." Her words made me sick. I felt like I was talking to a stranger, someone I didn't recognize. I wanted to scream at her, tell her how much she'd hurt me, how betrayed I felt. But instead, I just looked at her and said, "You don't get to call this boredom or excitement. You lied to my face. You lied to the kids. And you cheated on me with our own kids' principal. How do you even sleep at night?" She rolled her eyes again, that bitchy little smirk back. "Relax, Mike. You're blowing this out of proportion. I make mistakes, sure, but I love you. I'm not leaving and I'm not cheating on you. It's just sex, remember. Nothing serious." That was the last straw. I realized then that she didn't see this as a betrayal. She saw it as some minor mistake, something she could brush off. And honestly, I was done trying to salvage what was already broken. I knew I had to think seriously about what I wanted next. Could I forgive her? Could I rebuild the trust? Or was this the end of the line? The truth was, I didn't have the answer yet. All I knew was that my world had turned upside down, and I had to decide soon how I was going to play this. Because if I stayed passive, I'd be nothing more than a fool. If I fought back, I'd have to be prepared for the fallout. And whatever I chose, I had to do it quickly before I lost what little hope I still had left. The days that followed were the worst of my life. Every time I saw Lisa, I saw her differently. No longer the woman I married, but someone I barely recognized. She continued her usual routines, acting as if nothing had changed, but I knew better. I'd caught her in her lies, and the trust was shattered beyond repair. I couldn't stand feeling like a fool anymore, so I decided I needed to do something drastic, something to make her realize what she'd lost, or at least make her regret betraying me the way she had. I started by gathering every piece of evidence I could find: screenshots of the texts, copies of the photos, recordings of her conversations. I wanted to be sure I had everything laid out clearly before I confronted her again. I also kept a close eye on her schedule, noticing when she left the house, who she was talking to, and where she went. It was like putting together a puzzle, and every piece made me angrier. How could she have deceived me for so long? How could she have betrayed the family we built over some stupid sexual fling? One evening, she was out running errands, an excuse she'd used 100 times before. I waited until she was gone, then I set up my plan. I had a friend I could trust, someone who owed me a favor, who was willing to help me execute my little revenge. I told him to meet me at her office, which I knew she visited frequently for some teacher stuff, and I gave him strict instructions. Record everything, don't get caught, and make sure she knows she's caught. When she came home that night, she was her usual bitchy self, snapping at me when I asked her about her day. I played it cool, acting like everything was normal while inside I was boiling with rage. She went straight to the bedroom to change, probably to get ready for her meeting with John, or whoever else she was screwing around with. I kept my nerve and told her I had something to show her. Then I led her to the living room. That's when I pressed play on the recorder I had hidden. The audio was clear, her voice saying things she'd never admit to, talking openly with her lover about plans to meet up, about what they'd do later, how excited she was for their secret rendezvous. I watched her face twist in shock and panic as the truth hit her like a freight train. Her lips trembled, her eyes darted around, trying to deny it, but I had her dead to rights. She started to cry, trembling, trying to lie her way out of it. "It's not what it looks like," she stammered. "It was just sex, Mike, just sex. It doesn't mean anything. I was stressed and he's just a friend. I cut her off, voice cold as ice. "You've been texting him for months. You've been sneaking off during parent-teacher night in his office behind my back. You lied to me about everything. And now you're telling me it's nothing? Sorry, Lisa, but I don't buy that. You were cheating on me for months and I've got proof, so don't bother pretending to be the victim here." She looked like she was about to break apart, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. "It was just sex, Mike. I swear. I didn't want to hurt you." I was just so bored, so stressed, I didn't think you'd find out. That was when I finally snapped. I realized I'd been holding back, giving her the benefit of the doubt, trying to see the good in her. But she didn't deserve my mercy anymore. I told her to pack her bags, that I was done, that I'd had enough of her lies, her betrayal, her bullshit. I said I'd be leaving and she could stay or go, but I wasn't sticking around to be the fool anymore. She begged, of course. Tried to manipulate me, cry, say she loved me, say she'd fix everything. But I knew it was too late for that. I couldn't keep pretending she was the woman I married, the woman I loved, not after this. Not after she'd thrown everything away for some cheap thrill with our kids' principal. That night I slept in the guest room. I knew I had made my decision, but still the pain gnawed at me. I felt hollow, like I'd lost a part of myself. I replayed all the good times, all the promises, and realized they were just illusions. She had been hiding her betrayal all along, and I'd been too blind to see it. I was angry at her, but I was also angry at myself for trusting her so blindly. I thought I knew her. I thought we had a solid marriage. But now I saw her true colors: bitchy, selfish, manipulative. She had played me for a fool, and I wasn't going to let her do it anymore. I was done with the lies, the secrets, the betrayal. I was ready to move on. The question was, could I ever really forgive her? Would I want to? Or was this the end of us? After I made the decision to leave, I felt a weird sense of relief mixed with an overwhelming sadness. It was like finally shutting a door I'd been avoiding for months, but the hollow emptiness that replaced the anger was almost worse. Every memory I had of Lisa, every moment we shared, suddenly felt tainted, stained by her betrayal. I'd trusted her with my life, and she'd thrown it all away for some fling with John, our kid's principal. The thought of her lying, sneaking around, and then trying to manipulate me into forgiving her, it made me sick. The first thing I did was call a lawyer. I wanted to understand what my rights were, what I was entitled to, especially since we had a house, 2 kids, and a lot of shared history. The lawyer listened patiently, took notes, and told me I'd need to prepare for a possible divorce. I wasn't excited about that idea, but I knew I couldn't stay with someone who'd betrayed me so completely. Meanwhile, Lisa kept trying to convince me she was sorry, that she'd change, that it was all a mistake, and I played along just enough to keep her off balance. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I wanted her to feel guilty or just to go away. Part of me still cared, but that part was drowned out by the anger and betrayal. I told her I needed space, that I'd think about everything, and she responded by calling me selfish and overreacting. Classic Lisa. She was still trying to manipulate the situation, make it seem like I was the problem. Over the next couple of weeks, I started packing up some of my things. I didn't want to leave everything behind, but I couldn't stay in the house with her. It was a constant reminder of her lies. I moved into a friend's apartment, and every day I felt more like a stranger in my own life. The kids would come over on weekends, and I tried to be strong for them, but inside I was shattered. How do you explain to your kids that their mother cheated on their dad with their principal? How do you keep a straight face when you're dying inside? One evening, Lisa called me crying, begging me to come back, saying she was sorry and that she'd do anything to fix it. I listened, but I didn't say much. I knew better than to fall for that. She lied enough. Honestly, I was sick of hearing her apologies, apologies that felt hollow, like empty words she threw out to keep me from walking away for good. The truth was, I didn't know if I could ever trust her again, even if I forgave her. The damage was done, and I didn't think I'd ever get over it. I started to focus on myself. I cut contact with her as much as I could, tried to rebuild my confidence, and spent more time with friends and the kids. I realized that I'd lost a lot, but I also gained clarity. Lisa wasn't the woman I thought she was, and I needed to accept that. I'd been naive, believing our marriage was unbreakable, but her actions proved otherwise. The hardest part was facing the reality that I might have to let her go completely. No more trust, no more hope that she'd change. I had to accept that our relationship was over, and I had to figure out how to move on from this betrayal. It hurt like hell, and I knew the scars would stay with me for a long time. But I also knew I deserved better, someone who wouldn't lie, cheat, or manipulate. Looking back now, I realize I learned a lot from all this. I learned that trust is fragile and that even the most seemingly solid relationships can crumble in a moment. I learned that people can lie to your face for a long time and still look you in the eyes while doing it. But mostly, I learned that I have to prioritize myself and my kids, our safety, our happiness, our future. I don't know what the future holds for me yet, but I do know I'm not going to let her betrayal define me. I'll rebuild one step at a time. And next time I'll be more careful about trusting blindly. It's been a few months since I finally decided to cut ties with Lisa. The house feels emptier now, but oddly it's also a little lighter. I can finally breathe without feeling like I'm walking on eggshells, constantly questioning her motives or wondering what she's hiding. The pain of betrayal still lingers, but I've come to accept it as part of the process of rebuilding myself. The kids are doing okay, considering everything. They're young, resilient, and I try to keep their routines as normal as possible. I can see the confusion in their eyes sometimes, especially during conversations about the divorce and what happened, but I want to be honest with them in a way that doesn't scar them for life. They deserve to know that adults can mess up, that love isn't always perfect, but that they are loved unconditionally. I tell myself that's enough. As for me, I've started focusing on my career and my own happiness. I've realized that trust isn't something I can give lightly anymore, and I'm more cautious about who I let into my life. I've also learned that you can't control others' actions, only your reactions. Lisa's betrayal was a hard lesson, but it's one I needed to learn about love, trust, and the importance of self-respect. Looking back, I don't harbor hate for her, at least not anymore. I'm angry, sure, but mostly I feel relief. Relief that I finally saw her for what she truly was, and relief that I didn't stay in a relationship built on lies. I don't regret the time I spent with her, but I regret trusting her blindly. That's a lesson I'll carry with me forever. Now I focus on moving forward, on healing, on becoming stronger for myself and my kids. I've come to realize that sometimes the greatest act of love is walking away from something that no longer serves you. That betrayal may have shattered my world, but it also opened my eyes to what I truly deserve. Every day is different. Some days I feel broken, other days I feel hopeful, but I know I'm moving in the right direction. I've learned that life can throw you curveballs, devastating ones, but you have to keep swinging. And I will. For me, for the kids, for the future. Because no matter how much it hurts, life moves forward, and so will I.